Good evening and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Tonight is a part two of The Twins, a journey of a lifetime, the Twins brothers' journey through Chicago sports history and their recollections of a bygone era. And tonight I am honored again to have Tony and Carl Ruzicka back on. This is one of the first times, as I was telling Tony Ruzicka before we came on, that we had the quickest turnaround for a part two. And this is great because it's fresh in my mind and I couldn't wait to get back at it. And gentlemen, again, thank you for tonight. And I'll start off by saying, I'll start with Tony. Tony, how are you doing, first of all?
Doing good. So
Good.
I do. You remember the last time I was sort of just struggling getting over COVID,
Yes.
right? So I had a lot of stuff, and then I never bothered to. I forgot all about it. So if you don't mind, just very briefly, we talk about how our journey with the hockey started when Pierre Pilat's picture was in the Cicero Berwyn Life,
Yes.
and we looked up his address and went to his house, and here is
Wow.
the autographed postcard that he gave us
Did
that
Palat
day.
live on Palat lived on Gunderson, right?
Lived on Ridgeland,
Ridgeland. Wow.
2813 Ridgeland.
That's a great photo.
Then he sent us to Glen Hall.
Back it up a little bit, or back it up and go higher. There he
There you
is.
go.
There's Mr. Goalie.
Glen Hall was 3212 Gunderson.
Wow.
Then we went to Bobby Hall,
When he wore number 16.
3513 Winona.
Wow.
And our favorite friend, Chico Mackey,
There he is.
3600 Elmwood. And Elmer Moose Vasco.
Moose Vasco. Wow.
He lived in the hillside.
Hillside.
Yeah.
Wayne Hilmer.
Wayne Hillman, the defenseman, right? Wayne
Right.
Hillman.
Hilmer, I think.
Oh,
Hillman.
Bill. Okay.
Hillman.
Hillman, you're right.
What is Hillman? Okay.
Yeah. Murray Belfour.
Murray Belfour. Wow. He scored a big goal in that game against Montreal to advance to the Detroit
Yep.
series. Yep.
Got
Len
both
Lundy.
goals.
Gary Melnick.
Wow. We're bringing back some names here, Tony.
Bob Turner.
Bob Turner. Wow.
He lived in Oak Park.
Okay.
And Al McNeil.
Al McNeil, who 10 years later in 71 was the coach of the Canadiens and stuck it to us in that 1971 game, being the coach of the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah.
That dirty rat.
That dirty rascal. He knew our systems. But and I'll switch over to Carl real quick. We'll start with a little hockey. Carl, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
Great. Oh yeah. Well, let's go back to Chico Mackey because it's something that I wanted to know about in the book. And again, I'm going to hold up the book here again tonight because we got to keep pushing this book. For me, this book's a great book. The Twins: A Journey of a Lifetime. This is a great read, and I hope everyone can get to it. I know we'll talk again at the end where the outlets are. I know we can get it on Amazon and the bookstore, Barnes and Noble. We'll have Tony and Carl tell us, but I want to go back to the hockey for starters. Tell us the story. I don't know who wants to pick it up from here, where you guys would, maybe go over to the local park and Chico finally offered to play in one of the pickup games. How was that? Just to,
Well, it was great. All right. But we would always pester him, we were maybe 7th or 8th grade, something like that,
Right.
And they flooded the field on 28th and East. He lived on 36th and Ridgeland. So, about a mile away.
And Elmwood.
And Elmwood, about a mile away. So, come on over, we won't tell anybody who you are. And you just play with us on our team. All right. He would never do it. And one day he calls us up at home and says, if you guys have skates, I'll meet you at the park.
Wow.
Right. My skates are at the stadium. So our parents always bought us skates that were probably 2 or 3 sizes too large because
Right.
we're going to grow into them. You know, unfortunately, we didn't, you know, didn't grow up. Now we're growing out. All right. But, oh, you know, what do you need? Size 9, size 10? He wore size 6.5.
Jeez, yeah, that was amazing to read
And
that.
we couldn't produce a 6.5 skate, so he couldn't come.
And the thing was, it was always they always wore sizes that were smaller to make them
Yeah.
snug to their feet, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, we had them way too big, and we had woolen socks and
Right.
and plastic bag tied tied over them to keep our feet warm. All right. So we were real disappointed. All right. So, but I will tell you that not in the book, but the year that his son had the accident on the
Yes.
farm, and you know, he didn't start the season with the Blackhawks, and Billy Ray asked him to come back. Well, the season had already started.
Right.
So now I'm in my 20s and this had the same pair of skates that we had in 7th grade, hadn't sharpened them since probably when we bought them. And he says, come on over to the house and then we'll drive over. I'm going to skate in Franklin Park rink.
Wow.
Right. So it was me and him skating. Well, one guy was skating. One guy was, you know, sort of like Rocky in the movie, you know, sort of
Right.
shuffling along.
Right.
And he was shooting slap shots right in front of me.
Oh, geez.
You know, slamming off the boards or the glass. All right, like scaring me. So I finally got a foothold once, and I shot one that was in front of him, and he looked at me. I said, "Warning shot."
Oh, God.
But you know, it was
another
fantastic.
interesting part about the shoe is that you know, years later, when he was old already, he suffered from foot neuropathy.
Yes, I read that.
You know, and we say, well, I wonder if it was because of those shoes.
Tony, was it Tony and Carl? Tony, question for Tony. Tony, was it because of that injury that he went into the boards? He had an injury, didn't he?
I don't remember that, quite frankly.
Well, that's what he said.
Okay. Okay. Tony, question for you. Can you guys both elaborate about the curved sticks that he gave you, Bobby and the Stan?
Yeah, well, that was when they first came out.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
you know, he said, I got a souvenir for you.
Jeez.
So
And I mean, those things were bananas, right?
oh, yeah.
They had that
Not
banana.
not like that. You know,
Jeez.
so,
That had to be something, because I always wondered, you know, people would always say, God, guys like Dennis DeJordy and Glenn Hall had to face these guys in practice every day. But I saw that Hall would wear a shield, a clear shield for practice, because that had to be, and especially when the other brother came, Dennis, that had to be a nightmare over there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we never got to see the shield because I think we told you in maybe the last podcast, but one time he called like around 10 o'clock on a weekday and says, I'll pick you up in about a half hour, take you to the stadium for the practice. And that was our day to clean the kitchen walls, and our mom wouldn't let us go. Big disappointment, John.
I could imagine. Oh my God! Of all the days we got to clean the kitchen walls. Yeah. Question for both of you, and I think it more or less Tony remembers this too. There was a thing here that I was reading off the notes where you guys you talked to Makita, and Makita had said something about he probably wouldn't have been able to play in this day and age. That was in the early '80s at White Pines.
yeah, White Pines, the golf dome, and we're at hitting bays next to each other. And we knew him, obviously. We had gone to his wedding, believe it or not. And he was saying, I don't think I could play in today's hockey. You know, the guys are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. And I just said, speak for yourself, Stan.
I mean, for even someone of his stature, because, he was superstar level, to say that he already saw that the game was changing, correct? I mean, he could see that these players now are just massive. And of course, the speed of the game had changed. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh, probably most of the forwards are Elmer Vasco's size.
Right. But
And he
of course,
was considered abnormal, unusually large.
what was Vasco, about 6'4", 6'5"?
That I don't remember.
Yeah, but he was a big man. He didn't skate with a lot of finesse, but he was a big man for sure.
Yeah, so then another time then I'm at the Dome and with Stan, and so hey, this I think was 1999. Tony went to Czechoslovakia. That's our father's heritage,
Okay.
and into Stan's heritage. All right.
Right.
I says, hey, Stan, Tony was just in Prague. Do you ever get back there to Czechoslovakia? He says, yeah, lots of times still have aunts and uncles and things that I go back. But he says, I'm not Czech, I'm Slovak.
Oh.
And I said, well, you're still okay.
You gave him that shot. Oh God. Just so many interesting things. Of course, that Blackhawk era with you guys, just amazing. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, John Socha, who you guys gave a book to, really interested, really loved, again, some of these stories. I gotta ask, if this is in all honesty, Tony, you warmed up Rudy Bukic before games. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to a little bit to the Bears now. We'll switch
Yeah,
a little bit on the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I warmed up Billy, whoever was the quarterback at the time. I would warm him up before the game.
What
And
year
the best
was what years again was this time frame with Bukic?
63, 64, 65, and 66.
Wade, was Wade the starter then? Bill Wade?
He was the starter in 63 and
63
most
to-
of 64,
Right.
I
I
believe.
mean, when you're saying you're warming up a guy like Rudy Bukic, I mean, were you catching some really tight spirals?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if I put it in the book or not. I don't remember, quite frankly, but it was, one of those very cold December days. And it was Rifle Rudy Bukic, if you remember, that was his nickname. And he's throwing these bullet passes to me.
Oh, jeez.
All right. And I'm throwing a bullet pass back to him. He throws it back to me. I bullet pass back to him. He looks at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" He says, "It hurts my hands." I said, "What do you think it's doing to mine?"
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I'll need surgery after catching a few of these, right? And then I read where both you guys might be the last two to catch the last couple passes of Mr. Luckman.
Yeah. So in
And we're
I don't
talking, by the way,
remember
to our audience, Sid Luckman. Yes.
Sid Luckman was still a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the first quarterbacks that made the T formation very famous. All right, and he was a assistant coach with the Bears, quarterback coach. Didn't really do too much, to be honest with you. All right, and we were well aware that he was a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Quarterback, yeah, sure.
Right, and anyway, a few years before we wrote the book, a gentleman wrote a book about Sid Luckman's father. All right.
Mhm.
But the original book was going to be a not so true story. This author lived on the block of Sid Luckman in Highland Park, and it was going to be a fictional story of Sid Luckman joining the kids on the author and his other playmates and playing football. Right? Then it dawned on us while we're listening to the author that gave a speech in Winnetka bookstall. Wait a second. On Saturdays, Sid Luckman would say, "Let me throw some passes to you guys." All right? Possible we were the last ones to catch a pass from the Hall of Fame quarterback, Sid Luckman. All right? Now,
How old was Luckman at this time when he
Okay,
was?
well, this is what I say. You know, we
That's
thought,
the
man,
best part of the story.
he's ancient, right? Then we looked upon it, it was only like 47. You go, ouch. We're gonna be 74 next month, you know, so it wasn't quite as old as what we thought, but we felt sorry for him because he couldn't palm the ball,
Oh,
a football. So he'd sort of cup the ball and sling it,
right.
you know,
Right.
and we look at each other and go, man, this guy's old.
This guy. So he was not rocketing them in there like Bukic was.
No, it was
Yeah,
they were floaters.
they were floaters. Well, but again, like again, when we talk about the book and the memories and the history and everything, these are things that you're like, wow, here I just caught a ball from Luckman, or I caught a ball from Bukic, or we talked about Mackey, we talked about Makita. I mean, we could go on and on. I mean,
Right.
these are just great
Well,
recollections.
we had fairy tale childhood.
Yes, beautiful childhoods for sure. But we'll keep going on to that. Of course, I love feeding off some of the things you told me, and I went back and read them again the second time. You guys had the opportunity to tackle Willie Gallimore.
Yeah, so
Was it a practice? Go ahead, you guys can.
it was a practice, but one of our we had two uncles on our mother's side who were tremendous sport fans and were very good at sports also. All right, and believe it or not, the Chicago Bears played the Cicero Boosters in an exhibition game.
Wow.
And George Hallis, you know, met his wife at Western Electric, who was the primary employer of Cicero residents, and I think he worked there in the summers, you know, when he was relatively young, going to college. All right, so probably why he played the Cicero Boosters. All right, so anyway, our Uncle Tom would tell the story that Bronco Nagurski was out there, and they say, "Hey, let's tackle Bronco Nagurski," and they gang tackled him, all the kids, and he ended up hurting his shoulder. Right, so Willie Gallimore, you know, Willie the Wisp, Gallimore would say, "Hey, Willie, you know, let us tackle you. You know, come on, let us tackle you one day." So on a Saturday before the Sunday game, he let us tackle him. No, I don't know how hard he was running, but we brought him down.
No, and Tony, you remember this pretty well yourself, right?
Yeah, and then the best part about it, you remember he died in a car crash, in the right after 60, when they were in the training before the 64 season started.
Right. Because he was on that 63 championship.
He was on the 63 team.
Yeah.
So then we went to the 25-year reunion of the Bears championship. So that would be 88. And we sat next to Mrs. Gallimore at the event. And she tells us, you two were Willie's favorite people.
Wow.
Made us feel pretty good.
Oh my God. You talk about 100 feet high. Gallimore was a running back, correct?
Yeah, he was a fantastic running back.
Yeah. And when he passed, how many years he had played with the Bears before he passed? Couple?
No, it had to be at least 5, probably more than that.
Did he play with Caceres?
He played with Rick Caceres, yeah. Rick Caceres was on the 63 championship team as well.
Yeah.
But he broke his leg in November of that year. So he was on the sidelines.
On the sideline.
In a cast.
Right. Wow. I mean, what a like you said, Tony and Carl, that, I mean, for his wife to say what she said is, you talk about cemented in your minds forever. That had to be the compliment of compliments. Well,
yeah.
And then I would just follow it up. We go to the 50-year reunion in 2013. 2013. And we sat with Roosevelt Taylor, who was our favorite player.
Wow.
And his wife. And his wife says, you two were Rosie's favorite people on the Bears. So there we go. 25 years apart, still made us feel fantastic.
Well, sure. And you know what? I mean, I'm sure just as I see you as gentlemen of my era, the respect that you showed these men, it really, you know, left a lasting impression on them too, because I'm sure even in that era, there were guys your age who were disrespectful, and they saw that. Guys like Hallis, the Chicago Blackhawk people saw, hey, there are two gentlemen here that are very respectful. So that, you know, who's ever watching this podcast again, it goes a long way. It just goes a long way to be respectful, to be nice, to, you know.
And I don't exactly know how to articulate it, but we were always very, very respectful, but they also knew that we wanted them to do well.
Right.
So, and we weren't bashful about giving advice. and they were receptive to it because they knew that we wanted the best for them.
Sure.
So
you were kind of that social media of what you were hearing in Chicago to them, in the sense, you know, our what we call now our Google or our social media. I want to kind of switch gears because again, I found some interesting stuff, and again, I want to thank Carl for this. I was kind of shocked because this one I missed over. It's in the book on page 109 and 110. And this one is the one about Billie Jean King, who, of course, is one of my favorites because she winds up beating Billy Riggs back in the 70s after he had beaten Margaret Court and embarrassed Margaret Court. Can you take me through how did you do in that? How did you do in that warm up, Tony?
I did it, Carl.
Oh, Carl.
So, well, you know, is this also like a sort of like the bygone era, right?
Yes.
So we had permanent court time in the winters at Lakeshore Racket Club,
which was up on Fullerton, correct?
On Fullerton.
Yes.
I'm not even sure if it exists as a racket club anymore, but
yeah.
Anyway, it was Lakeshore Racket Club, and we go there for one of our permanent weekday times, and we see most of the courts are being taken up, and we go, you know, what's this? They go, it was the Virginia Slims tournaments at that time. All right, so our court was one of the few courts that were in use. All the rest of them were taken up by the tournament, right? Mostly from like using them for grandstands and things like that to watch, right? And Billie Jean, we had the only open court, and Billie Jean King says, you know, could I use your court to warm up? You know, we both said, you know, sure. And so, could you warm up with me?
Oh my God!
So we were novice tennis players. You know, the crowd, there's like a balcony.
It's right over you.
Yeah, people rushed to watch her warm up, and I'm over here, you know, taking my racket back. It felt like 1,000 pounds.
Oh, jeez.
All right, and we weren't very skilled. All right, so Tony's just watching, and I'm hitting back and forth, or attempting to hit back and forth. When she came to the net to do volleying, it was quite a challenge because, you know, I didn't have the skill to put it on her racket all the time. All right. So I'd whiz the ball past her, but it would land in the court, and Tony would go point.
Tony.
And the other thing is, you know, Tony's married. I'm single. All right. Somewhat shy. Didn't know how to go about presenting myself to someone. And Chris Everett is just there by herself.
Was she dating Jimmy Connors at that time?
No. So anyway, you know, Tony, go over, talk to her, ask her out. You know, I was too shy.
Of course.
I don't want to say necessarily nervous, but too shy. I didn't do it. But you know, I ended up, I landed on my feet years later.
Well, I got to tell you that, I mean, in the sense you're talking about King, then you see Everett, it was intimidating. And of course, the shyness all coming into play. But going back to King, I mean, was she like, I mean, when she was hitting the ball back to you, I mean, was it whistling at you?
It was, you know, Tony wasn't that bad, you know, even though we were novice players, we had some power, but it was definitely much better than what I was used to seeing. You know,
Wow,
so
incredible, right?
I got my record on most of them.
Wow. Tony, you remember the whole incident pretty well then?
Oh yeah, and there, again, there, Billie Jean King was very, very courteous. She was grateful that we let her use the court.
She was not, she wasn't like this demanding woman, meaning get off the
No,
court. What are you guys doing here? Nothing
She
like
asked
that.
us, can I use the courts?
Wow, very respectful. Again,
Would you mind volleying with me?
wow.
Sure.
And again, you're not going to see that in 2023 from the
No.
top ranked tennis star, let's say whoever it is nowadays. I've kind of lost touch with the sport,
Right.
but exactly.
So
I
here's the
don't
other
know.
thing I was going to also tell you that years later, I was working at Price Waterhouse at the time, and the men's professional tennis, they played at Soldiers Field before it was remodeled. In the back end, the be like the south end, I think. All right, and I went there, and they had a huge thunderstorm. Eddie Dibbs was
Oh,
he's one of the well-known tennis players of that era. All right, and he was one of my favorites. So I'm watching him in a match, and they have a thunderstorm lasted over 2 hours.
jeez.
So it's like 11 o'clock or 11:30 that they're going to resume the match, and I was the only one in the stands,
Wow.
and I was cheering for Eddie Dibbs, and Eddie Dibbs motioned me to come down. So not that I go down to the front row. He might go. I sat in the chair next to him, give him the towel, wipe off his racket and things like that. So, how many, and it was just like, it just happens.
It's, yeah, you're in the right place at the
Yes.
right time, right? Exactly.
Right.
I was wondering who Dibbs was because I did not know that one, but per se. But again, just another cool, really great moment. I want to elaborate on this, so we'll maybe kind of do a little switching over here to the Cubs here.
All right.
This one thing I maybe have missed in my mind about, I remember the incident, and if we can elaborate on it, was when Brant Brown dropped the ball in Milwaukee and Ron Santo went crazy on the radio.
Yeah. So
Kind of made it seem like it was going to be 1969 all over again with Don Young. What's this thing about the Brant Brown glove? He drops the ball.
So, Tony and I were very close friends with the Cubs' longtime clubhouse manager, Yosh Kawano. At that time, Yosh was not making the road trips, but he was in the Cubs clubhouse. And oftentimes when there was a night game on the road, we'd pick Yosh up in the Cubs clubhouse, wait for him to finish his duties and take a shower, and then we'd go out for dinner, right? So some of the clubhouse assistants says, hey, let's play wiffle ball. All right. So this is the old clubhouse now, right? And I'm left-handed. So I'm looking for a left-handed glove, and I go into Brant Brown's locker. He's left-handed. All right. And the glove was so stiff.
Oh.
There's no flexibility in it whatsoever.
I mean, you couldn't even bend it.
No, I'm going to say, how in the world can he catch a ball with this? And we found out 5 days later he couldn't catch a ball.
Right, and that happened like at the.
It happened in the same week.
Right, that was when Riggleman was the manager, and they forced a 1-game playoff. Correct.
Right. Yeah,
I remember that. I really thought it was something about the announcing. I'm going to just take a little pause here to remind our audience, this is part 2 of the Twins, a journey of a lifetime, brothers' journey through Chicago sports history and their recollections of a bygone era. And I want to tell you the part 2 tonight is we're getting a little more into the stories, some of the stories of what they went through and some of the athletes and personalities they came across. So we're getting into the little nuances of the book and everything else. Again, it's highly recommended to buy this book and to watch part 1, which aired about 4 weeks ago, which is on YouTube now, and this will come out next week. But again, we're going over some really neat stories of athletes of the Chicago Blackhawks, the Chicago Bears, some tennis players, and we're basically now hitting some things with the Chicago Cubs. And another one I found here was the one where you guys are shagging fly balls from Ramos Ramirez and Kenny Lofton taking batting practice. Was that the 2003 season?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So you
So-
guys were out there still. I mean, you guys were moving and grooving out there.
so in I don't know if that was 2003 was his Yosha's 50th year or 55th year, whatever it was, but the Cubs honored him. And what can we do for you? All right. So the Houston's clubhouse manager, Dennis Laborio, got his start with Yosha's brother Nobi for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And they just opened up at that time, we called it Minute Maid Park in Houston.
In Houston, yes.
And Yosh says, boy, I'd like to see the new park in Houston. So Nobi went along, and Yosh, I sort of like chaperoned the two older gentlemen to make sure they didn't get in trouble on the Cubs plane, right? Tony came the next morning, and they had just traded for Ramirez and Lofton.
Ah, yes.
The first game was going to be a Friday night, and around 10 o'clock, Ramirez and Lofton went early to Minute Maid for batting practice. And they looking for people to shag flies. So Tony and I were right there, ready, willing, and able.
Wow, that it. And again, you were right there again, that right moment. And I mean, we had gotten them too from Pittsburgh, correct?
From Pittsburgh.
Yes, I remember that trade, kind of the trade that turned it around for them.
Yes.
At that time. Yeah, for sure.
And then it was also the Cub family trip. So, the players' wives and that could go to Houston. That was their 1 year outing. And I forget, they sat way in the upper deck somewhere, but we sat basically in the first row, right behind the on deck circle for Houston.
Wow.
And we
That's
spent
all-
most of our time in the Houston clubhouse.
Yeah, we spent most of our time in the Houston clubhouse. So at the time, if you remember, they had the hill in Houston ballpark in center field.
Yes, way back in center field, it would go up right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think, if I remember right, I think Carlos Zambrano hit a long fly ball there, and Craig Biggio was playing center field, and he tripped going up the hill, and Zambrano got a triple, I believe. All right.
Wow.
Someone got a triple anyway. So the next day we go early and we're having breakfast in the Houston clubhouse. And Craig Biggio comes in. What the hell are you guys doing here? I said, we decided to come here and teach you how to catch a fly ball on the hill.
Oh, you were great with the shots. You were great with the shots.
Oh, they were real nice. Craig Biggio, very respectful of you.
Oh, God, yeah.
And Nobi and
All clean, fun comments.
Jeff
right?
Bagwell. Yeah, they were all wonderful guys. So
Yeah,
I'm going to go
Craig
back.
Biggio, he gets his 3,000th hit.
Yeah.
He does me a favor. He autographs a bat.
Wow.
To Tony and Carl. Craig Biggio, 3,000.
Incredible. Especially a player from another team too. Just incredible stuff. Tony, we'll stay with you. You're the sign boy at the senior tournament at Harborside. What's that all about?
Well, Yosh was very, very close friends with Ray Floyd.
Okay.
And Ray was playing in the tournament. So Carl and I and Yosh go see Ray in the tournament. And we get there, and there's some big problem. And they go, what's the problem? We don't have a sign boy.
Oh, jeez.
I said, well, I'll be the sign boy. So, I was there. You know how you do it. They got I don't know if they still do it or not, quite frankly, but you had a sign with the people that were playing,
Right.
where they were in relationship to par. So, and at that time, the Golf Channel, I think, had just come out, and there was a big thing about the sign boy.
Oh, wow.
And that was like,
Again,
in
again,
that same period of time, I was the sign boy.
and you never expected something. And
No.
correct me if I'm wrong. I remember growing up watching Cub games. Ray Floyd was a big Cubs fan, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You
I
know,
remember
when
that.
he
we
had his
threw an
own
85th,
locker.
yeah, we
Yeah.
threw an 85-year birthday party for Yosh, and Ray Floyd came in, believe it
Wow.
or not, for the party.
So you talk about larger than life. That had to be something, because
And then John, he was tremendous Cup fan. He had his own locker in
Wow.
Wrigley Field. All right, and Tony wasn't there that day. I might have been in Kentucky visiting his in-laws, but Yosh and I go to follow Raymond at a tournament here in Chicago, and Yosh would always walk around with a headset, listening to the ball games. And Raymond was near the lead, and he'd come over to the ropes. Always wanted to keep tabs of what was the score of the game. All right.
Wow.
So the Cubs end up blowing a lead, never to recover, and Raymond's score went the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. He started bogeying. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and because Yosh was always working for the Cubs when the Masters tournament was on, the first year he retired, I contacted Raymond and said, Raymond, if at all possible, could you arrange for Yosh to go to the Masters?
Wow.
So it was 2009. Ray got us free tickets for all 4 days of the Masters.
Jeez.
And, remarkable, really. And I think it was like later that year, I went to see Yosh in California. And I was going through his garage looking for memorabilia and stuff. And I found all these pictures of Ray Floyd Jr. and Robert Floyd, Ray's kids, in Cub uniforms and stuff like that when they were, 5, 10 years old, stuff like that,
Jeez.
and other stuff relating to the kids and the Cubs. And earlier, Raymond's house just burned to the ground, and all of his family pictures, all that stuff were destroyed.
Jeez.
So I got to send Raymond and his wife the pictures that I found in Yosh's garage.
Wow.
And,
Incredible.
they were very grateful for him.
One of my favorite players, of course, is the famous left fielder Billy Williams. And I saw in here the thing about he gave you an opportunity to pinch hit. What's that all about? In the sense that you guys remember that?
Oh yeah, well, this was before anybody could do it. I think now you could probably do it if you pay for it. But one October before Yosh leaves, he goes, "Write your name down for me on this card." So I write Tony Ruzicka, and then Carl writes Carl Ruzicka. All right, so
In our handwriting.
we think
Sure.
nothing of it. All right, and then Harry Carey dies.
That was
And,
98, right? 98,
Yeah,
I
I
think.
think so. And so
Yep.
Yosh is one of the few guys that's going to come on the team plane for the funeral and wake. And he calls, he says, "I've got something for you guys." I says, "Well, we're going to see you in about 3 or 4 weeks. We'd always go to the last couple of days of spring training, help Yosh pack up and stuff like that. You can just give it to us when we come out." So anyway, we go out there and we have our own Louisville Sluggers.
Wow.
With Tony Ruzicka, my penmanship. All right. So Billy Williams sees it. He goes, "Man, that's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. That's great." Well, it's the last game of spring training. I think the Cubs are winning like 9-1. All the regular players were taken out of the game because they're going to get on a plane, run away, as soon as the game's over. And Kyle Farnsworth gave up 8 runs, I think, to tie the game.
Oh, geez.
So now it's to the bottom of the 9th. And Billy Williams goes, Tony, see if you can find Jeff Blauser.
The shortstop at that time.
Yeah, see if you can find Jeff Blauser. And if you can't find him, get your bat. And like an idiot, I found Jeff Blauser.
Ah,
I could have batted.
you could have batted. Yeah, oh God, that would have been something. If you would have got a hit, it would have been marked in the MLB. Well, I'm going to close it off with this one. I have to find out one more thing from both of you. What's the thing about guarding Sammy Sosa's bats?
Well, there's also in the spring training. So, the beauty of the few days that we spent there was, we had a free reign of the clubhouse and free reign of the dugout. So, I'm sitting in the dugout and Sammy Sosa comes out and says, here, watch my bats for me. Don't let anybody touch them, basically, right? So anyway, it was a unique episode, and Yosh really, we take it as a sign of ultimate respect for us that Yosh, when a new supply of bats came in, also had the supply in spring training, they come in a big carton, and he let us put the number of the player, on the handle.
On the handle right there,
On the
on the
bat.
bottom, right?
So it's in the bat rack. You can see your number and you can pull it out. All right.
Okay.
So Sammy Sosa had 2 type of bats. He had the normal barrel, with its rounded barrel, and he also had the barrel where it was concave. Where they cut out the roundness of it. All right, and then
Got it.
come in like that. So that's called a cup bat. All right. So if it was a cup bat, we put 21C.
Uh-huh.
If it's in the rack, he knows that's his cup bat. If it's just 21, it's the normal end of the barrel.
Gotcha.
All right. So when he had the incident with the cork flying out, of broke the bat,
at Wrigley Field. I remember that night.
All right. So all the media says, "Oh, it's even got C on there for 21 cork."
Cork.
And it had nothing to do with the cork. It had to do with the fact that it was a concave barrel head.
Yeah, I oh my, and what of course the stirring of that was when that all happened. Again, I can't believe we're coming to an end of this tonight, but this was really good tonight to get inside some of the chapters of the book. I'm so glad that you guys were both able to elaborate on some of the greatest stories. I mean, again, this book is something, because I don't think there's anyone, I'll put my money on it, that there's no one in any other state or that follows a team that have had the experiences that you both had. I mean, like I said, it just caught my eye from day one, and I'm so honored that I was able to have 2 interviews with 2 fine gentlemen, and I feel like I've known both of you my whole life. Again, the book is The Twins, A Journey of a Lifetime, twin brothers' journey through Chicago sports history and the recollections of a bygone era. Tony Ruzicka, who's to my left here in the podcast, and of course, just below us, Carl Ruzicka. Guys, I don't know what to say, but I want to get this part 2 out as possible. I can't believe already 45 minutes went by.
We can do a 3, 4, and 5.
Oh, you know what? I would, because I don't. Somebody said to me the other day, "Did you watch this movie? Did we give this whole book away?" No, we did, because there's so much in this book from these 2 fine gentlemen, and I want to say,
and we haven't, we interject in the book, some of our life experiences with
yes,
school and family and vocation and things like that, and we also mentioned we were fans of the Blackhawks and the Bears and the Cubs,
sure,
and we're also fans of the Follies and Rialto burlesque theaters.
yes, But I gotta tell you, and I'll end
You
it
know,
like
we have a lot of history in
a
there.
lot of history. And I have to tell you, the world needs more Tony and Carl Ruzickas, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Wow.
Two fine gentlemen, and was just truly an honor. And I'm glad now that I have that opportunity in my lifetime now to just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Tony, hey, Carl, what's going on today?"
All right.
Yes. And,
think-
you know, so John did say that you can get the book on Amazon.com or on Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, again,
.com.
those are still the outlets, and it's
Yes.
still readily available.
Right.
Some of the Barnes and Nobles still have it. Matter of fact, I went to the one here not too far from where I live in Schaumburg, and there were a couple copies on the shelf. My copy, of course, is the most treasured one. It's a signed copy from the brothers, but I have to tell you, Amazon, don't delay, because this is a really fun read.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
You know, we had a lot of fun writing about it, and we've had a lot of fun of comments such as yours of bringing people back to an era that we'll never see again.
Is it safe to say we'll never see it again?
No.
Gentlemen, good night.
Yes. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you. And thank you so much.